So here's a question I get a lot. How do I know I'm asexual? Well, for me, that happened when I received the welcome letter from the Office from Asexual Affairs.
Dear Mr. Nicolaides, we are delighted to inform you that you are asexual. Congratulations.
I'm kidding. There was no letter. There is no Office of Asexual Affairs, but man, oh man, wouldn't it be great if there were? Oh god, like it would just be so much easier. It would save so much time and there would be so much less pressure and anxiety. So how do you know you're asexual? Let's go to Ace Camp. Okay, let's get a handle on the situation. Why is it so hard for a lot of ace folks to figure out they're asexual? Part of it is representation. When you look out at the world, films, books, television, music, theater, all kinds of media, you really don't see a lot of ace people represented. There aren't a lot of ace lives, ace relationships. Now, you see a lot of everything else. You see straight lives, more than anybody needs. You see a growing number of gay lives and trans lives represented, and there's even some bisexual representation out there. But ace representation? Crickets. And this is a big problem. One of the ways we come to understand ourselves is by looking out at the world and trying to find representations of ourselves in it. You know, we feel stuff and experience stuff. And then we go out looking for other people that feel and experience the same stuff we do. So we can say, hey, that's me. That's my experience. I understand that. And we understand who we are. With no representation in the world, ace folks feel stuff and experience stuff. But then we look out at the world and don't see a language for it anywhere. We just see a lot of experiences and feelings that don't match up. And when you always are seeing experiences and feelings that don't match up, and when all you see are things not matching up, you start to believe that there's something wrong with you, that you're the thing that's wrong. And instead of finding the words for who you are, you find the words for being ashamed of yourself. The other problem is sex. Sex is incredibly complicated. Everyone in the world has a relationship to sex, from wanting it all the time to not wanting it at all. But we live in a culture that wants to pretend that sex doesn't exist. We want it to stay quiet, completely hidden and out of sight. We don't want anybody to talk about it. We don't want to see it represented. We just want it to go away. Culturally, we want sex to stay in a very contained little box where there's no gray areas, no fuzzy lines, no confusion. And sex is nothing like that. Sex is all gray areas. So our culture treats sex as something dangerous and taboo, so much so that we don't really have a good language for talking about sex. We only kind of sort of talk about sex. So this makes things even harder for ace folks. Not only are we trying to talk about something with a kind of sort of language, we're trying to talk about this thing that we don't even experience. It's a double kind of sorta, and it makes understanding any sexual identity outside the dominant culture very confusing. So it's okay if you're confused about whether or not you're asexual. I mean, it's kind of a miracle that anybody ever stops being confused about it. You know, the cultural cards are really stacked against us. They're so stacked against us, it's even hard for me to answer this question in a clear, straightforward, clear-cut way. But I'm going to give it a try. When you're not sure what you're feeling, be sure of what you're not. So let's turn to a very famous asexual headcanon giant, Sherlock Holmes. How often have I said to you that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth? Well, he wasn't talking about asexuality, but he could have been. The definitions of asexuality are really tricky.
Asexuals don't experience sexual attraction.
Okay, well, what's sexual attraction?
Well, that's hard to explain.
Okay, so asexuals don't experience sexual attraction at all.
Well, some do. Demisexuals and gray asexuals sometimes experience sexual attraction, but rarely, not all the time.
Oh, okay, so the key is not wanting to have sex sometimes.
Well, not exactly. What's important is not experiencing sexual attraction. You can want to have sex. Sex favorable asexuals do exist.
Okay, so it's just about not experiencing attraction.
Sexual attraction. You can experience other kinds of attraction, like aesthetic, sensual, emotional.
Okay, okay, okay. Sometimes the best course of action is just trying to figure out what's not there. I came out as asexual at 42, but way before then, like 2 decades before then, I figured out that something about me was different. I knew there were things about sex that I just didn't feel. There were things about sex I didn't understand. I knew my friends were relating to sex in this one way, and I was just not getting it at all. I didn't understand what I was, but I could clearly see what I was not. It's like when there's a really popular show on television, like Game of Thrones. Everybody's watching it, everybody's tweeting about it, talking about it at work. Every episode, bam, they're sharing a meme about it and talking about dragons and talking about Hold the Door, all of that. But you don't watch Game of Thrones. You've never seen an episode. All you know about Game of Thrones is what everyone else is saying about it. That's how I felt about sex. Everyone was tweeting about it and talking about it and sharing memes about it, and I knew that they were funny, but I just couldn't understand why. And in a world of Game of Thrones, I was watching The Walking Dead. Don't beat yourself up because you don't watch Game of Thrones. The dominant culture is Game of Thrones. The dominant culture wants you to believe that it is the only show on television, instead of the truth, which is that there are hundreds, maybe thousands of shows that you can watch. Don't get freaked out by this. Instead, celebrate the fact that you know what you're not. It puts you one step closer to figuring out what you are. So if you eliminate all things that are impossible and you're left with asexuality, well, chances are you're probably asexual. Even if you don't fit every definition word for word precisely, and even if you still have questions or are a bit unsure, asexuality, however improbable, just might be the truth. Forget the definitions. Focus on what you experience. So look, definitions are very comforting. They take big, confusing ideas and give them a shape. Definitions wrestle in all the unknown things in the world so that we can know them. They let us know what is and what isn't. That makes people feel safe, in control. The problem is that definitions are limited because human life resists definition. It's most beautiful when it's messy and uncomfortable and undefined, when it's full of variety. Life wants to get rid of all the boxes, all the lines. Life just wants to be. So when we focus on the definitions of asexuality, for example, and we try to fit ourselves to those exact definitions, we are setting ourselves up for failure. Instead of focusing on definitions, we should just focus on what we experience. We should focus on what we feel. So what do you feel when you think of asexuality? What do you feel when you connect asexuality with yourself? What do you feel when you say out loud, I am ace? What have you felt when it comes to attraction? If you have had sexual experiences, what did those experiences feel like to you? When you think about sex, what feelings come up for you? When you think about not having sex, what feelings come up then? You'll probably feel a lot of different things, and some of those feelings may be contradictory, but they will also tell you a lot. Those feelings have nothing to do with cultural norms or expectations. They're not connected with what your parents or your friends are expecting of you. You're not measuring these feelings against anyone or anything else. You're just listening to what you have to say about your own experience, what you have to say about you. So when you strip all of that other stuff away and you find yourself telling yourself, asexuality feels right, then it doesn't matter if you don't fit all the definitions word for word precisely. The language of asexuality, all of the definitions and terms and labels aren't a test. They're tools to help you explain yourself to yourself and explain yourself to the rest of the world. They're tools to help you find community, other people who experience the world the way you do. That's all. And if the language of asexuality does that for you, then you're ace. Asexual doesn't have to be forever. Remember the Office of Asexual Affairs? Remember that it doesn't exist? There's no rule in any rule book anywhere in the world at any time in history that says that whatever sexuality you pick at the start is the one you have to stick with through time immemorial. Identity just doesn't work that way. People change and grow and discover new things about themselves. They evolve out of old ways of thinking and find new ways. They adapt new ways of understanding themselves. People aren't static. We move. That's what's cool about us. So if today asexuality makes sense to you, then don't worry about what's going to happen 10 years down the road. It makes sense today. It helps you today. So today, you're ace. You have every right to claim an identity that explains your experience as you understand it. Now, there are gatekeepers who are going to try to throw up fists and they're going to shake definitions at you and say, hey, that's not ace. That's not what's on the asexuality checklist, so you can't claim that. Well, you can just ignore those people because that isn't the reality. There is no asexuality checklist. Life defies checklists. Those people have no power to tell you what is true about yourself. And if what is true changes later, then it changes. No big deal. So, what have we learned? When you're not sure what you're feeling, be sure of what you're not. Forget the definitions. Focus on what you experience. Asexual doesn't have to be forever. Now you won't have to sit around waiting for that welcome letter from the Office of Asexual Affairs. Certified male, first class. Hey, thanks for supporting the channel. Happy that you are here. Make sure you like, subscribe, click the bell, do all the things one does on YouTube so that I can see you back here at the next video. See you then.